And hello again, dear ones. Reverend Robert with you on a Friday evening. It's 5 o'clock on the Mountain Time Zone, and that means it is time for And Now the Good News, a weekly look at the good news stories that have brought some warmth and some inspiration to my heart, and I trust will to yours as well. If you're watching at another time on a rebroadcast, thank you, and thank you for being here. If you're watching with us live, thank you, and thank you for being here. Please do hit the share button, like button, any kind of buttons you might want to hit. Maybe hit a few buttons you don't want to hit. I don't know. But I want to welcome you to And Now the Good News. Followers or fans of New Thought Media Network may remember that this program at one time was a podcast, and it's been on hiatus for a while, and we're now back as a weekly video broadcast. And I want to share with you just a little bit of the vision of this broadcast before we launch into tonight's top stories. The vision here is that we are going to come to you every week, 5 o'clock Mountain Time, for half an hour and share the good news stories. And I'm not doing this alone. I need your help. I need the help of anyone that wants to be involved with New Thought Media Network, because anyone that wants can come in on a Friday afternoon to a studio and pitch your story. And if you'd like to present a story on New Thought Media Network, then all you got to do is send us an email, goodnews@ntmedia.org. Let us know what the story is that you found, or what story you think you might want us to cover. And if you'd like to present that story live on the air with us, we're more than happy to bring you in for that as well. All righty. We'll talk more about that a little bit later. But for now, tonight's top story, I'd like to introduce you folks to a gentleman named Kevin Strickland. Now, this is a really, really good story. Kevin has been in prison for the last 43 years for a crime he did not commit. He was convicted of a triple homicide when he was 18 years old, and a court in Missouri recognized this week that just isn't true, and they don't have a leg to stand on in that regard. And interestingly enough, Kevin found out about all of this because of a news story, a news ticker that went across the bottom of his screen while he was watching a soap opera in the day room, still in prison. A lot of problems with this case, a lot of interesting things with this case. Now, also, very interestingly enough, in Missouri, if somebody is wrongfully convicted of a crime and later exonerated because of DNA evidence, then they're entitled to restitution of $50 a day for every day of wrongful imprisonment. Unfortunately, that does not count for Kevin here, because Kevin was not released because of his conviction was not overturned on DNA evidence. What happened was the judge looked at the merits of the case and realized we need to do something different about this. So Kevin doesn't get anything. He's not going to get any money. And then some nice people stepped in and started a GoFundMe campaign. I'm going to put the link to that in the notes in the comments of today's show if you'd like to join in. Currently, $1.7 million has been raised through the GoFundMe program for Kevin, so that he can get his life started again. That's what I call a really, really good news story. I'm glad you're back out on the streets, Kevin, and especially as this was a crime that we know Kevin did not commit. All right, a couple of other good news stories that are happening in our world. Now, oftentimes in the news, what we hear are the bad stories, the tough stories. There's a really horrific story coming out of Detroit this week around guns. But in the midst of that, there are some good news stories as well. Colorado, my home state here, has not been immune to any of this. And over the last couple of weeks, we've had a couple of different shootings. Today, the Denver City and Aurora City, two major cities here announced a cooperative program to launch a gun buyback program beginning next year. I think it's a good news story that we're getting some of these guns off of the street. And no matter what maybe the science might say around this one, I think this is a spiritual thing. We need to get these weapons off the street. And congratulations, Aurora and Denver. Those two cities are going to do that. On a similar note, Kyle Rittenhouse, you may recognize that name from the mainstream news as well. In a recent interview, he said that the rifle he used in the Kenosha shooting would be destroyed, and that he would have that rifle destroyed. He doesn't have possession of the rifle at the moment, by the way. That's still in the possession of the police department, as it's still evidence in another ongoing case. However, I would love to be part of the fundraiser that supports melting down that weapon that Mr. Rittenhouse used. All right, shifting gears for just a little minute. Let's talk a little bit, I would, if you don't mind, about technology. And in these programs, I love what's happening in the technological world and some of the things that we get to experience. This is one of them. Now, there's a lot of things, right? Whenever we're going to start talking about technology, I think one of the biggest things we have to talk about is energy and energy renewal. And unfortunately, the picture I have here for you is not showing up. Oh, there it is on my screen share. I wanted to show you these because these are a couple of underwater kites. Yes, underwater kites. The idea is that these will be dropped into the ocean, and the current moving back and forth will create energy. Now, these are called sea dragons. It's a unique form of kinetic energy, and it's generated by the movement of the tides. As I said, they'll be about 40 meters below the surface, and each one will generate enough energy to power about 50 to 70 homes. So now this is being tried in the Faroe Islands. It's a Danish archipelago, lies between Iceland and Shetland. And with only 50,000 people, they're giving it a shot. We're going to watch this story. We're going to follow this story and continue to watch how this happens, because pretty cool looking things, huh? Almost space-like. Almost. And in other technology news today, now this story, I find this one just like, how easy is this to figure out? Because what we're talking about is solar. And if you've been alive in the last couple of years, I think you've seen plenty of solar systems going up, especially in smaller communities. And a lot of them look like this, just solar panels out in the open dirt and doing whatever it is, just being there. Well, some companies have started, and some communities have started using this space to grow landscaping and flowers and herbs and other garden type stuff. A company called Solar Star Urbana Landfill Community Solar Farms is what they're doing here. And the idea is putting solar farms on the top of capped landfills. Now, remember, a capped landfill has been cement over the top of it, so you can't, water can't leach down and rot the garbage and all the refuse that's under there. So it's a stable base, it's a stable platform, and that land's just sitting unattended in most places and for most accounts at this point anyway. Big idea. Annapolis, Maryland has one of these. It's 55,000 panels. It's on an 80-acre landfill, and it's generating enough power for about 2,500 people. Pretty good idea. Now, Icon Environmental Energy is building a 70-megawatt solar farm in Houston that's based on the same idea. That'll power 12,000 homes, and that's on top of a 240-acre capped methane-leaking landfill. There's not a lot we're going to do with this land, and we've destroyed most of it. So there's not an awful lot we can do with this. Let's put some solar panels on it. And by current estimates, there are more than 10,000 closed or capped landfills around the United States. And this company is estimating that as many as maybe 4,000 or 5,000 of those could be turned into solar farms overall. What do you think, folks? Should we be putting up solar farms on top of landfills? Is that a safe way to build the infrastructure we're going to need to move into the next century? We're going to wait and see. We're also, I trust, we will see the efforts of this, and we'll keep you up to date and informed on this story as we go along. Remember, you're here watching And Now the Good News as part of the New Thought Media Network's Positively Inspired programming. I've got some more great news stories for you in just a moment, but before that, we want to say thank you to our sponsors. Join us for just a moment, won't you? We'll be right back.
Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, for your continued support. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown Atlanta, for your monthly contribution. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, for your monthly contribution. And Suze Ajit, thank you for your very generous donation. And a special thanks to Hefferland Foundation for your generous technology grant. And a big shout out to all our committed donors.
And if you'd like to become one of our committed donors, please head over to the website, ntmedia.org. Click on donate. You'll be given an option to select a one-time donation or a monthly donation. Click that monthly spot, and then any amount qualifies and goes a long, long way to making sure that we can continue to bring you these amazing programming. Please be a sponsor, be a mentor, be a committed giver with New Thought Media Network. All right, back into the good news. We've got plenty more stories for you tonight. And the next story I want to introduce you to is a gentleman from London. His name is Steve Verze. And Steve is 47 years old. And this is a really cool story because what's going on here is, technology just went bing, bing. I'll get to share that. I'll get to share that Steve's picture with you here in just a moment. But Steve is the recipient of the world first 3D printed eye prosthetic. So he needs a visual prosthetic, and they've started doing this, right? So we've got an idea. Here we go. Let's get you a picture of Steve here. Steve was able to. Is that it? Yep. Nope, that's not it either. Come on now. Let's find this. Hey, we could use a producer on this show too. If you'd like to sit in the background and push a few buttons on Friday nights to help us make sure this show happens, we would love to talk to you. Here it is. Here's Steve's picture. Give you a chance to take a look at this gentleman. This is amazing. Look at that. The problem with most prosthetic eyes is that it's really just a piece of glass, and it reflects, but it doesn't absorb the light as much as it reflects. It becomes very obvious. Looking at this, it's tough to tell which one is the real eye and which one is the prosthetic. The other beauty is these prosthetic eyes can be printed in about a half the amount of time and cost a whole lot less than creating a brand new eyeball. Also, the fitting is a lot less invasive and therefore a lot less painful for the person that needs this help. I think this is an amazing story. I'm so happy to see that we're still putting the good technology to work in the good places. And that's what this news story is, this news program is all about for us. It's an opportunity to come together and celebrate what the good things we're hearing in our lives. So if you see a story you'd like us to cover, send us an email or a link, goodnews@ntmedia.org. If you have an idea for a story, please let us know. We'd be more than happy to share that with you and to talk with you about that. If you'd like to be a regular correspondent on our program, if you think you've got what it takes and you want to be with us on Friday evenings for every week or numerous weeks throughout the year, please drop us an email. Let us know. We'd love to bring you onto this team as well. The idea would be that we have correspondents all over the country and in all over the world bringing us good news stories throughout the week, and we'll be able to feature those. We're starting with 30 minutes a week, but we have an hour budgeted if we need it, and would be happy to spend an hour each week with you sharing all these good news stories. And hey, I will tell you that I get a lot of my stories from the Good News Network, the goodnewsnetwork.org. They're not a sponsor, but we'd love to make them one. And the Good News Network does a great work at curating just stories from all over the place in all types of sectors. So please do check out the goodnewsnetwork.org. All right. Let's keep going. Here's another one I love. Now, the good news is always had a flair for conservation and for planet Earth. And this is a fun story that we've just learned about. It would appear that British Columbia, up in Canada, the provincial government has recognized that its old growth forests are irreplaceable. And they are setting aside roughly 10,000 square miles or 2.6 million hectares of forest from future logging. This is big. It also is a commitment to halt 1/3 of all old growth logging, which itself came on the same. And this all came out of the recent COP26 announcements and to help end deforestation. Now, there is a small little thing that's got to happen because this is Canada, and much of this land was native land. All of it was native land. And there is a United Nations treaty on the rights of Indigenous people. In the BC government has to send notification and receive consent and approval from 204 First Nation tribes that inhabit the province. And so essentially the First Nations could decide that they want to continue to develop their timber resources and use and log the wood and use it. I have a sense they probably will not. We'll keep an eye on this story for you as well and let you know as soon as we know more. But let's keep those fingers crossed. We're going to set aside 2.6 million hectares of trees from future logging in Canada. And oh my gosh, that's huge. Huge. All right. Continuing on today with another environmental story that I found that I really am excited about this one. The Monarch Butterflies are making a comeback. Now, this is one of those things we may not have recognized that we're in trouble, but scientists are saying they're seeing more Western monarch butterflies migrating into California for the winter this year. Now, they're optimistic, cautiously, they say, that this is the beginning of a resurgence. Throughout the 80s and the 90s, the numbers were incredible. And then over the last couple of decades, habitat loss, other things their numbers have dwindled. And there were only 30,000 that were counted in 2019, and that dropped in 2020 even more dramatically, most likely just because there was nobody there to count them. This year, they're saying the count is over 100,000. And so far this year. So that's, from 30,000 to 2,000 to 100,000. I'm going to say we're on the rebound. I'm going to stick with the affirmation that the monarchs are definitely making a comeback. I got a feeling it won't be long before we see some great videos coming out of California of these monarch butterflies. There is an amazing video, if you go search it, of some micro cams that were put inside a drone that is built to look like a butterfly. A hummingbird, and then they flew that drone into a flock of monarchs. Woo, baby. It's a pretty wild video. Wish I had thought of that when I was putting the story together. Maybe I'll save that for you and bring it back next week and share that video with you then again. Here's another fun story I found. As a spiritual organization, New Thought Media Network, we love to see where spiritual communities play together. This story is coming out of Germany. 3 different communities are building what they're calling the House of One. Now, I love that name. The House of One is a new multi-faith center with the purpose of fostering communities and dialogue. The building will house a church, a mosque, and a synagogue in 3 separate sections, linked by a communal domed hall in the middle. House of One will also be open to other faiths as well as the secular society. What a great demonstration of a vision of a world that works for everyone. The House of One in Germany. I want to go. Who wants to go? We should go sometime. I think it'll be a good idea. All right. If you're just joining us, folks, this is And Now the Good News, happening Friday evenings at 5 p.m. And we would love your help in making this vision, this dream come true. You see, we covered a lot of ground here this evening with a lot of great news stories, and we'd love to get more of those news stories on the air. However, we've got to source those, and, well, I don't imagine you really want to listen to my voice for 30 minutes straight. So why not send us an email? Let us know what stories you know of, what good news stories are happening in your direct community, maybe in the world at large. Take a broader look and share with us some of the good ideas, the good news stories. Let us know who would be a great person to be on this program. Who of you out there would like to be our sports correspondent? Who would like to be our fashion correspondent? Who would like to be our entertainment correspondent? Who would like to be what other do we need a weather correspondent? We need a weather correspondent. What good news stories do you know of that you'd like to bring to New Thought Media Network? We'd love to hear from you. Please send us an email, goodnews@ntmedia.org. All right. Our final story for this evening before we get wrapped up. This one's really important to me. And I know it's really important to a lot of people. And of course, I already closed the tab. That's okay. I'll find the story again. I know where it is. Because the basis of it is that we're making it easier for people to get help. This is a big thing. Now, right now in America, we have a suicide hotline. We're making that easier. Starting next year, now this is not rolled out yet, but it is being worked on. Starting next year, you'll be able to use 988. That's right, 988. And you'll be able to use 988 to connect a phone call to a suicide crisis counselor and hotline or mental health professional. So if you're having a mental health moment, you can use 988 to contact somebody. And again, this isn't happening right now. So if this is an immediate concern, if you're in crisis and you need someone to talk to, please use the national number 1-800-273-TALK. That's 1-800-273-TALK. I feel incredibly blessed that I have not been more closely impacted by suicide, and many families have, and even my family, we have had our brushes. And what I want you to know is there is always somebody to talk to, and there is always somebody to support you in staying safe. Please, if you have a mental health crisis or suicide ideations or or are in an active suicide scenario, please call 1-800-273-TALK. That's 1-800-273-TALK. Get somebody on the phone. If you won't call them, call me. Email me. But the important part is we're expanding how rapidly and how quickly someone can get help, because not only can you be getting, and again, this all happens really in July. Some carriers and places right now, if you dial 988, your phone carrier will most likely transfer you directly to 1-800-SAFE-TALK. If not, 1-800-273-TALK. But starting July 16th, they're required to make sure that 988 goes to those numbers and put you in the hands of the right people. Here's the best part. They're adding texting as well. Starting in July, again, it may not be available in your market right this moment. As we continue to roll this out, this will be available, and you'll be able to text your concerns and text for help as well. I think this is incredibly important, and I think it's incredibly overdue. It's time. It's the 21st century, and we're almost a quarter of the way in, so we're 20% in. Let's get this happening. Let's make sure that our kids, our friends, our families are safe from suicide and mental health concerns. All right, folks, my name's again Reverend Robert. This has been And Now the Good News. We're going to get out of here for tonight. Thank you again to everyone that's made a donation during this program or anytime throughout this week. You are incredibly, you're a great blessing to all of this. We'll be back again next Friday with more of And Now the Good News. Until then, peace and blessings. Bye now.